In the battle between trailers for the audience goodwill, it isn't just Ironheart versus Superman, it's Marvel versus DC and Kevin Feige versus James Gunn. It was a battle of creative philosophies, and it did not go well for Disney. Let's dive in. This video is sponsored by Fume. Kevin Feige has an undeserved reputation as the architect and the mastermind of the MCU. And that may be true for the modern day MCU, but it certainly wasn't true back when the MCU was captivating the hearts and minds of audiences worldwide, and when DC was the joke. Times may be about to change though, with the myth of Kevin Feige as the mastermind behind the MCU gradually being eroded in real time, including by major mainstream publications like the Wall Street Journal, as we'll get back to before long. Yet perfectly illustrating exactly what Kevin Feige is the architect of is Ironheart, a Disney Plus series whose trailer was ratioed to oblivion. Even more so because it was released directly opposite the trailer for Superman, coming from James Gunn, current DC Supremo and former Kevin Feige apprentice. Now it would appear the student truly has become the master. Of course, there are worries pertaining to Superman as well. Opinions are divided on the level of wokeness in it, and how destructive that might be in the end. Some maintain that Superman doesn't have any wokeness to speak of, all worries are blown out of proportion, while others claim there is some, but it's harmless, like your friend double-tapping his AirPods like it's 2016. See, that's the thing with habits. Some are harmless, others not so much, and Fume makes them easier to swap out. Have you ever caught yourself reaching for a bad habit without even thinking about it? Maybe it's out of stress, boredom, or just wanting to fit in. Well, that's where Fume comes into the picture. It's not about quitting, it's about replacing. Fume, the sponsor of today's video, offers a simple and enjoyable way to break away from bad habits while still having something satisfying to reach for, by way of flavored air. If you haven't heard about flavored air before, then think of it this way. If vaping is a sticky soda, then flavored air is a herbal tea, and Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. It looks awesome with a weighted, high-quality design. It's made to be fidgeted with, complete with soothing snaps and clicks, thus filling the void of any bad habit you may want to ditch. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint, my personal favorite, as well as orange vanilla, another popular choice. There's no vapor, so you can use it anywhere, and obviously there's no addictive nicotine. On the contrary, Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. Fume is backed by doctors in the US. With flavored air, you can satisfy your fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume has served over 500,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using our code midnightsedge, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Click the link tryfume.com/midnightsedge, that's tryfum.com/midnightsedge, or scan the QR code on the screen to get yours today. Thanks to Fume for sponsoring this video, and with that, let's return to the battle of the trailers, and the larger battle of visions they symbolize. Let's begin with Ironheart, the first trailer of the two to be released on Wednesday, May 14th, which only meant more people had the chance to see it, and thus be primed to appreciate the Superman trailer all the more when it was released a few hours later. And even Marvel and Disney knew what the reception to Ironheart was going to be. Because, as we saw in our previous video, they set the stage for the trailer by releasing a behind-the-scenes roll the day before. But the real purpose of releasing that was the interview with executive producer Ryan Coogler pleading with the fans to please accept Riri Williams, arguing that she isn't just a DEI measure taking over the Iron Man mantle, even though that is exactly what she is, and arguing that she has an actual fan base and legacy in her own right, even though she has nothing of the sort. This character was introduced in the comics in Invincible Iron Man issue 7, which was released right in between when Captain America Civil War and Doctor Strange were released in theaters. Because that's the era when the good people at Marvel Comics were busy driving traditional comic book readers away by systematically replacing fan favorites with woker and more diverse counterparts, just like the MCU would come to do on film in the years that followed. In other words, Ironheart has no fan base to speak of, she never did, and no legacy other than the destruction of Marvel Comics and Western comics as a whole, and nothing Ryan Coogler is bribed to say can change that. While most were disappointed by the movie Black Panther 2, Keep the Water Mexicans Out of Wakanda Forever, for a variety of different reasons, there was wide agreement that Riri Williams' Ironheart was the worst part of it. So it's not like there was a lot of demand for an Ironheart series to begin with. Alas, the powers that be flushed 100 million plus down the drain making one anyway, and then let it sit on the can for years, because obviously no one wanted it. Honestly, the whole series should have been scrapped and never seen the light of day, Batgirl style, because it can do nothing but further damage the MCU and the comic book movie genre as a whole. And indeed, that kind of destruction is all that was promised by the trailer, featuring someone who felt entitled to be iconic by taking on the Iron Man mantle. The audience response to all this stunningness and bravery was as swift as it was brutal, with the Park Place writing, Marvel's Ironheart trailer drops same day as Superman. Fan reaction is brutal as Ironheart dislikes explode. The write-up reads, sometimes timing is everything, and for Marvel, today's release of the Ironheart trailer was a major misfire on many levels. In what may go down as one of the most unfortunate scheduling blunders in recent superhero marketing, Marvel Studios released the trailer for Ironheart, a show that has already faced major delays and skepticism. Just 3 hours later, DC unveiled James Gunn's trailer for Superman, offering fans a grounded, traditional take on the Man of Steel that's not without its detractors. But contrast between the two couldn't be sharper in terms of YouTube likes versus dislikes. Both trailers had reached around 2.5 million views at the time of that writing, and more than twice that at the time of this video's making. As such, the numbers presented in the article is already out of date when making this video, and the current numbers as of the making of this video will be out of date by the time you watch this. So let's stick to the trend, which is that the dislikes exceed the likes, and the ratio of dislikes to likes is increasing. In the comments to the trailer, the greatest compliment I've seen offered is pleasant surprise that Marvel hasn't disabled the comments altogether, because everyone is rooting for Ironheart to fail. Let's go back to that Park Place, which writes, that's an avalanche of backlash for Marvel's latest project. While Superman is being praised for channeling a sense of hope, purpose, and timeless heroism, Ironheart is once again being criticized for leaning too far into the MCU's well-worn girl boss template, complete with snarky one-liners, over-stylized visuals, and what many see as forced empowerment over character death. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that Marvel did James Gunn, DC, and Superman a favor by releasing the Ironheart trailer when they did, because that way, the Superman trailer seemed all the better by comparison. About that Park Place writes, the Superman trailer, directed by James Gunn, focuses on Clark Kent wrestling with how to do the right thing in a complicated world. He's heroic, sincere, and, most importantly, written as a character first, not a political symbol. And regardless of how you feel about David Corenswet's casting or the look of the Superman suit, there's still a sense of reverence here that's been missing in many recent superhero projects. Of course, there are many that still have issues with Superman. I have some reservations as well, but what I see from my vantage point is that many of the bones of contention people had before the trailer are now gone, or at any rate, greatly reduced. Rounding out what awaits Ironheart though, that Park Place continues. As previously reported, Marvel released 3 of Ironheart's 6 episodes on premiere day. That's not a bold new strategy, it's a red flag. The studio is front-loading the series in what might be an attempt to inflate minutes-watched stats, hoping to salvage headlines and maintain the illusion of success. This is the same tactic they used with Echo, a series that launched all at once and was quickly forgotten. It's a move that signals internal doubt and a preemptive attempt to get ahead of a potential ratings drop-off. Yet it is precisely the likes of Echo and Ironheart which are the products, or even end products, of Kevin Feige's run as architect of the MCU. Because prior to Phase 4, he was just one of many. It was from Phase 4 onwards, after he had conspired with Bob Iger to get rid of Ike Perlmutter and all the checks and balances that enabled the MCU to skyrocket in the first place, that the MCU became Feige's show to run. And then he brought about the MCU, even if that already had failed in the comics. One of the other key architects that helped the MCU thrive in the first place was in fact James Gunn. While he didn't join the herd until Guardians of the Galaxy, as reported by the sources of our own Tom Connors, it was essentially James Gunn that mapped out the entire cosmic aspect of the Infinity Saga from that point onwards. Because he couldn't set it up in Guardians of the Galaxy without knowing exactly what he was setting up, and how the mythology of the Infinity Stones were supposed to work. In so doing, he actually did more architecting for the MCU than Kevin Feige did, or at least what Gunn did was more successful. And now, through a series of unfortunate events, or not so unfortunate depending on how you look at it, James Gunn is actually the architect of the DC universe. And so, Superman and Ironheart represents 2 very different visions. Ironheart, the endgame of Kevin Feige's vision, and Superman the beginning of James Gunn's. Now, because of Kevin Feige and his female-centric vision, the future of not just DC, but the MCU and the entire comic book movie genre arguably rests on James Gunn and Superman. Do you think Superman can bring the audience for comic book movies back, or will the additional despondency brought on by Ironheart be too much to overcome? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and before you go, remember that for a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using our code midnightsedge, you'll get a free fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your flavored air experience. Click the link tryfume.com/midnightsedge, that's tryfum.com/midnightsedge, or scan the QR code on screen to get yours today.